We're actually on live already, so good
Hey,
morning.
here. Hello. Sorry about
That's all right. I wanted to check in and see who had already joined.
oh,
So, good morning. Those are who are here already, you early birds. Emily just joined us, and we're preparing for our 10 o'clock Earthbound Live. And while we're preparing for that, while we're giving other people another few minutes to join, does anybody have any pre-questions for me or Emily Conway? You can put them in the chat if you do, and I will monitor the chat. Emily, good morning.
good morning.
Is there anything that you want me to say besides the bio you sent me?
I don't think so. Uh,
Okay.
Not that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. We'll give everybody another couple of minutes.
Okay.
I was absolutely not sure how this was going to work because I'm actually on the road, not at home with my usual setup. So I was like, hope the place I'm staying has good enough Wi-Fi.
Let's fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Always an adventure. So good morning, Yvonne. Good morning, Lindy. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Christina.
Hi, Yvonne.
So, what's it like in your world this morning?
Pretty warm. We had upper 70s here yesterday.
Wow.
Very strange. But I think I think it's going to be in the 40s tomorrow. Our weather I read somewhere that Nebraska has the most extreme weather in the country in terms of up, down, up,
Up,
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of
It's
course,
more that way.
yeah. Well, that's climate change is more extremes, less what we remember as that nice middle.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and of course, that's human memory.
Yeah.
We like to remember what we want rather than what actually happens. Always,
Very,
always, always.
very true.
Good morning, Lindy. Well, I'm going to give people one more minute before starting in. So tell me this: did you miss that big band of tornadoes that came through?
I
The
must,
other was it Friday? I think.
I must miss them. Yes.
Yeah,
We have thunderstorms, which,
yeah,
and wind, which is,
yeah,
we always have wind, wind. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but no tornadoes. We definitely have more hail, big hailstorms
Mm,
here than we
mm,
had, in the past, and I think that's also
yeah,
no.
and that's seriously damaging. I mean, that's
It's
um,
it's very bad. Yes, we've had roofs replaced a couple.
eh,
Yeah,
eh,
I know.
that's not good.
No,
That's not good.
no. It is.
Okay, folks. It's 10:01. Should we be prompt? What do you think, all of you in the chat? Should we be prompt or not? I'm thinking maybe we should just get going and other people can filter in as they filter in. Good morning, Beth. So I'm Susan Tweit. This is the second Earthbound Live, named Earthbound for the title of my forthcoming book, which I'm not going to talk about. I am going to good morning for Montrose, Beth. I'm not in Paonia, but what I want to say is that I envisioned this series as a wonderful way to connect with the writers on Substack who I find fascinating and who inspire me in just a kind of casual conversation about what being connected to the earth, what terraphilia means to them. So thanks for voting, Wendy. Says the former teacher. Prompt, be prompt. Okay. Thank you, Lindy. Um, and this morning, I'm just delighted to talk with Emily Conway, who writes A Thin Space on Substack. If you don't know it, definitely worth a read. Emily's personal essays are a way for her to talk about her practice of living with awareness. And so they can range widely, but they are I find them always thought provoking, inspiring, interesting. And she also is a spiritual companion. She has a spiritual companion practice, and we're going to get her to talk about that a little bit, and hosts retreats and spiritual practices. And what was the third thing? Workshops,
Yes.
retreats, workshops, and spiritual practices.
Right.
And she's also a maker and a mom and a wife, and a gardener. And so her posts include all of those things. So you get a whole life, which is a really lovely thing. I don't, I prefer it when we don't partition ourselves. Um, that's kind of the social media thing, show the best you. This is my best side. I'm going to show this on social media. But what Emily does is model for us showing her whole life. And that is more useful and inspiring, I think, to all of us because none of us are perfect.
Mm.
We all have a best side, but it's not where we live most of the time, honestly. So, so good morning, Emily. And is there anything you want to say to add to what I just said before I dive in
Oh,
with my first question?
oh, no, thank you, Susan. It's helpful to me to what you said about showing your whole life. That's very helpful. I think I hadn't realized that that's what I was doing in my Substack, but then at the same time, when I think about my life and my own sense of showing up, that fits
Yeah,
very well with,
yeah,
yeah, actually, I am doing that, and I probably
yeah.
wouldn't do it any other way. So thank you for that.
I think that just to follow on up on that thread for a moment, the idea of showing your whole life. I think that that's what we learn from. One of the things I learned from writing memoir, and I've written two, and I'm a slow learner. I learn by doing. And one of the things I learned is that memoir is not interesting if you write it from the perspective of what you already know. It has to be written with, as the Zen people say, beginner's mind, because we only learn from people who have something to teach us. We don't learn from the people who already know everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
We don't relate to the people who already know everything. So that's the lovely thing to me about your whole life awareness practice on
Mm.
Substack.
Thank
So
Yes, I definitely don't already know everything.
I think when we get there, it's time to check out and go on to whatever is the next thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I
I
think
certainly don't.
I think I know less and less. It's more of a process of unraveling the older I
Un
get.
Unraveling. Ooh, that's really interesting. I'm gonna bookmark that because I
Okay.
wanna talk about that later. Let's
Oh,
start with teraphilia, that word that I that I co-opted and defined as our innate, affection for and connection to this earth and all other living beings. As a spiritual companion,
mm,
how does that how does that word strike you? How does that enter into your spiritual companioning practice? And feel free to spend a little time talking about what that practice is.
okay. I'll do that. I I made some notes over here and, so that I could think about your questions beforehand. And, the answer I gave to that question, what is teraphilia to me, is a very kind of spiritual companion type question answer. So, um, I wrote down to feel the earth and be with it,
Mm,
to and not, like I go out in my backyard and stand there, and feel the earth. I mean, I do when I garden,
yeah.
but I think it's more of just a noticing and awareness that, I'm not sealed in some kind of supposed human vacuum, w
Mm,
and that everything around me is living um and has all sorts of things going on in it. And to be with that, whatever that is, was sort of my answer to that question. Um, and spiritual companioning is basically the practice, I call it the simplest definition is the practice of being with someone else, companioning them wherever they are. People often ask me, is spiritual companioning like therapy? Is it like coaching?
mm,
And it is to some extent in that it engages in very deep listening, but in other ways, it's not because we don't come with some kind of like goal. We're not trying to fix you in any way. We're just,
right,
we're not trying to help you come up with a 10-step plan to get
right,
off the ground or to fix something inside of you that needs to work in a different way somehow. And I'm not saying that those
right.
different places for those things. But spiritual companion is about being with you where you are and listening to who you are as you are. So my terraphilia definition works well with that.
Well, it does. I mean, that whole idea, I think, and that's something that our culture doesn't reward, does it? Just the being with. There's we have metrics for everything. Does it do this? Does it reach this level? Does it, we're always about some kind of progress, forward motion, something we can count and point to.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lost art, the being with. I think that's what we miss in community. That's why it's hard to talk to people who are different from us because we want to fix them.
Yeah.
We want to correct them
Yeah.
in our own gentle, generous way of thinking we know everything. Um, so that idea of being with
Yeah.
as spiritual companioning and also being with the earth and all the other living creatures we share this planet with.
Uh-huh.
That's really, I think there's a revolutionary aspect to that.
Hmm. I would say yes. And I have a lot of other spiritual companioning friends who would say the same thing.
Same thing.
But the idea of listening with and allowing for the discomfort that comes up in you and being with and allowing for the discomfort that comes up in you, right? Or
Right.
whether it's listening to another person and they're saying things that you don't agree with, or that really you could enlighten them about various aspects of whatever, whether it's that or whether it's being with um, my garden through the very
Right.
extreme ups and downs that climate change has brought us,
Yeah.
and sitting with that and the emotions that come up for me in that, watching my garden in that. Those are, I think, really important practices for helping us do the work that we the work that we're called to do during this big upheaval and trans
Yeah.
we've got
Yeah.
going on right now. So,
And isn't that interesting when you think about it in that context, the sort of world context, the war in Iran,
yeah,
everything that's going on in the
yeah.
world, more genocide in Darfur, all of that, Myanmar, just everything that's going on in the world, plus climate change. We have a hard time just sitting with ourselves, much less sitting with a world that feels like it's in crisis. Now,
Mhm.
I want to say this. Um, I'm on the road, and I drove through the San Luis Valley in Colorado on my way to this particular road trip. Good morning, Anne, who just joined. And I did that route deliberately, not because it was the fastest, but because I knew the sandhill cranes would be there in spring migration. And this is not the same cranes as you have going through Nebraska. These are the greater sandhill cranes of the Rocky Mountains, and there's about 22,000, which is not nearly as many as the lesser sandhills on the plains, where there's about 500,000,
Yeah.
but they're bigger. I'm going to go all Texas, but they're bigger. Um, the greater sandhills in the Rocky Mountain Flyway all come through the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado, which is part of Colorado's a big empty. It's this big wide windswept valley. And in the spring when they're concentrated there, you can just drive up to a viewing area, get out, and there's 3,000 sandhill cranes doing their throbbing call, keeping track of each other because they're very much flock birds, especially in migration. And it's magic.
Yeah.
And you can just get out of your car and just stop
Mhm.
and just listen.
Mhm.
You could even not even watch them. Lindy says the sandhills are my absolute favorites. You and me both. They're my heartbirds.
Mhm.
Um, that's the kind of being with we need to do more. That's a specific example of being with another species. But I think just that stopping the car, getting out, and just listening,
Mhm. Mhm.
just being with this earth and recognizing that in the midst of the trauma that we feel about climate change and all the crises around the world, um, sandhill cranes are doing what they've done for the last 10 million years. They're headed north to break up into pairs, and they pair for life. And they, I love this, in the spring when they're in the San Luis Valley and also on the North Platte, they dance and renew their pair bonds every year.
Mhm.
Hmm. Wonder if that would be useful for humans to emulate. Um,
Yeah,
but there they are, just doing the same thing they've been doing for 10 million years.
yeah.
Just as if there were no wars, just as if there was no climate change, just as if they were continuing to weave the world they know with their particular sandhill crane magic.
Mhm.
How much we can learn from that. That's not to deny what's going on in the world. I don't mean I'm going to become, the ostrich, the proverbial ostrich, sticking my head in the sand. But it
Right.
does mean that when I stop and spend 15 minutes in the middle of a 6.5 hour drive with the sandhill cranes, I remember how much beauty and joy and goodness there still is in this earth, how much is still working the way.
Absolutely. I mean, when you stop on the highway and get out, get the sandhill cranes, you're being present with what is, you know?
Yes.
And they're doing what they do and what, um, to continue that car and look, in some ways, you're reminding yourself that that's something which is the present. That's a lot in our present. Um,
Yes.
and but ultimately, to return to yourself and to what's happening in your little square of world.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
what you said about being with the cranes, as you were talking about that, I was thinking how grounding that is, to s-
Mhm.
and say, "Oh, I'm here."
Yes.
And how
Yes.
helpful that is to have a practice like that, whether it's being with the cranes or just, opening my back door and feeling the wind come in,
Mhm.
along with all the other city noises, having having that practice to come back to helps us then to deal with the stuff that's larger than our you know, square mile.
Our square mile or a round mile, as the case may
Yeah.
be. Um, Lindy and Beth, I'm seeing comments that the video quit and the screen went black.
Mm.
Are you are you do you wanna both of you try refreshing the screen and seeing if that helps? Is everybody else seeing what's going on in the video, or are you all off?
Everybody's the only people off. We're the only people on. We're talking to ourselves.
We're talking to ourselves.
Mhm.
Um,
Nothing happened for me.
um, yeah, nothing happened for me either, and I'm
Hello.
seeing nobody else commenting.
No.
Hmm. I mean, if hmm, I don't know whether we should try. I can refresh the screen on my
Okay.
end and see if that does it. So hang on, you and I may have to reconnect.
Wait. On. Oh, okay.
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 Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So everybody who lost us, go ahead and refresh your Wi-Fi connection or whatever. That's a hazard of doing these live videos is we can't tell from our end, Emily and I can see each other, but we can't tell from our end if it's our connection or your connection. And I tend to think what happens in, in this world of very complex internet connections that usually it's at the user's end.
Mm,
So thanks for the comments, Christina and Yvonne. Um, all right. So I was going to follow up on one thing there. I
mm,
love this kind of free flowing conversation.
yeah,
Okay, so I guess one thing I want to say is in this business of just being with, I really love
mm,
that. And you used the word earlier, unraveling
mhm,
um, the self as part of the way we learn. We tend to think of learning as, you add another brick and then you add another brick on top of
mhm,
that, and then you add, like we're building a structure. But I love this idea of unraveling. Is that something that in your spiritual companioning practices and your workshops and stuff, is that something
mm,
you play with a lot? I mean,
yeah.
you're a fiber person, so I know that unraveling has some specific meanings too, but there's a metaphor there that's worth exploring.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as a knitter, unraveling is not the funnest thing in the world to do. If you have to, you'd like to actually knit the sweater and not have to pull it out. But
Yeah.
I another word I use alongside unraveling is unknowing, which is a little
Mm.
more um, I don't know, something. Um, I think when I talk about those two words, I'm speaking from my own experience and then the experience of sitting with other people who go through this process, where in a lot of times, the first few decades of our lives, we accumulate a lot of knowledge. And we do things with the knowledge that we accumulate. And then somewhere along the way, and this doesn't just have to be like first and second half of life kind of things, but somewhere along the way, something happens where what we thought we knew doesn't quite line up anymore. Things don't quite
Mm.
make the sense that they do. We hit some big transition, some loss, or some big change. We find ourselves in some surprising place and we don't know what to do. We don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I find those places to be very um as a human, really uncomfortable,
Mhm.
sometimes scary, sometimes like, "I would like to get out of here as soon as I can, thank you very much." Um,
Yeah.
you know, but also those places, if we don't rush it, are places of deep, um, deep being and deep change, even though we don't
Mhm.
always know what's happening in them.
Yeah.
And as I age, I find that those spaces are coming more quickly, or like I'm
Hmm.
headed towards, I'm headed towards this acknowledgement of all the things that I don't understand and don't know, and I'm asked to kind of be with that and
Yeah.
be with
Yeah.
me and the world in
Yeah.
that, I guess, in a way that I hadn't in the past. So
In the
that's
past.
a very short answer to a very complicated
Yeah.
thing.
That is a super complicated thing. And
Yeah.
I want to say that one of the things, to go back to the idea of grounding and being earthbound or
Yeah.
reconnecting with our terraphilia, one of the things that I find fascinating about the more connected I am to nature in the everyday sense, not
Mhm.
driving off to see the sandhill cranes, but just every day, the more likely when I come to those points where I'm asked to unlearn things I thought I knew, the unknowing, the sort of shedding the layers that our culture and our
Mhm.
society and just being part of the world, the layers that we grow around us as protection, as image, as whatever you want to call it, the more I find that I'm grounded with the earth, the more likely I am to be able to sit with the shedding of those, as uncomfortable as it is. And it's interesting because I notice that um, okay, so here's the scientist confessing. I read astrology, not the popular sort, but the sort of in depth sort, because I find it as a system of knowledge super, super fascinating. And, if you read astrology, whether it's Vedic or whatever, or Western astrology, everybody's talking about the huge transformation we're in and
Mm.
how uncomfortable that is and how there all these possibilities in that transformation. And I think that's what happens when we unlearn, we unravel, we unknow, but we stay grounded with the living world.
Mhm,
We find the possibilities in that discomfort of unlayering ourselves,
mhm.
of and it is super uncomfortable. No one likes humans generally hate change, which
Yeah.
I find amusing because if there were no change, we would still be the little cells that didn't become the egg that was fertilized and didn't divide into becoming the complex human beings with our load of other lives, our microbial load that comes with us, our cooperators. We would still be those little cells just going, oh, well, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening still. Nothing's happening still. This is really comfortable being this two little cells. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And yet we hate change. Hmm.
I
And again, sort of going back to the natural world, change is all around us. We would
Yeah.
like to freeze frame our garden on the prettiest day. We would like to freeze frame the cranes and their throaty calls in migration. We would like to freeze frame the forest as we like it, or the prairie as we like it, or the desert only when it's blooming beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
But then it would be dead.
Mhm, mhm.
And even death is change because there's decay and recycling.
Yeah.
So I find that whole idea that, ooh, and sitting with change is really hard, but it's also really fruitful.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, being with change is being with what is, as you've said. I mean,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
non-movement.
Yeah.
And no, we don't like it because it messes with our sense of, in my opinion, our sense of security, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
get that's a practice, and I mean,
Yes.
nature and the natural world, it teaches us that, you know,
Yes. It
it
does. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
constantly changing in the seasons and and it just gives way, you know, from one thing to the next. And we can practice doing that as well. And of course, there's things that are harder to do that with than others, but um,
Absolutely. Yes.
it's
Absolutely.
it's a daily a daily being with of that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. And that's the interesting thing, a daily being with.
Hmm.
What a great way to think of it. Life itself. And I think that this just occurs to me. I think that your writing on a thin space
Hmm.
encapsulates this idea that life itself is the practice.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
daily being is the practice. And nobody said it was going to be easy, but we kind of have this choice. We can either join the stream of life and participate as fully as
Mhm.
possible. And
Right.
none of us are perfect, so we're not going to be aware every moment, we're going to screw up and, have temper tantrums and go, no, I don't want it to change. I don't want to deal with this. But our other choice is to be like those two little cells. Oh, this is very comfy. Nothing's changing. Nothing's
Hmm.
changing. Nothing's changing, and not
Uh,
not be participating in life at all.
mm-mm.
Hmm.
No.
Sometimes it might be comfortable to do that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
I mean, I would argue that at some point it gets really uncomfortable trying not to change. Um,
yeah,
it
yeah,
creates it's sort of, when I think about it, how am I going to expend my energy? Am I going to expend my energy resisting this? And sometimes we just do, and that's
yeah,
fine. Do it
yeah.
until we don't, that's fine. But am I going to expend my energy resisting this for the next decade or whatever? Or am I going to just say yes or breathe or take a deep breath and jump in the pool, or let the water take me where it's headed anyway? You know, um,
Yes,
that's to me. I mean, I've learned or am learning that it's easier in some respects to just go with the movement of the stream and be open than to stand up in the middle of it, and try to stay there for a real long time.
or try to be the dam,
Yeah.
try to actually physically be the dam. That's a very hard thing to do. That takes a
Yeah.
lot of effort. The
Right.
image about change that comes to mind and I was thinking about your garden and my garden,
Yeah.
and the image about change that comes to mind when we find ourselves resisting change is, okay, if we're going to plant a tomato plant, um, it's going to have to change to get tomatoes. I mean, I
Yes.
hate to look at this purely from a human standpoint, but that's why I plant tomatoes.
Right.
Not entirely, but that's most of why I plant tomato plants. So
Yeah.
I have to have a seed, which is the product of change itself. I have
Yeah.
to plant that seed, which then has to sprout into a seedling and has to grow more than those first two cotyledons. It has to grow more leaves and roots.
Yeah.
Um, and all that's the process of change. It has to get big enough when
Mhm.
I put it outside in its wall of water teepees to keep it from freezing to death at
Yeah.
5,600 feet in western Colorado. It's got to get big enough to flower,
Mhm.
and those flowers have to get pollinated by the native bumblebees who themselves had to grow out of an egg,
Mhm.
you know, and
Mhm.
become bumblebees. So the whole thing is a process of change. So as a gardener, if we were to say, as gardeners, if we were to say, oh, I hate change. Well, that would be to say, I don't want that sunworm tomato to slice on my plate.
Yes. Yeah, but that's that again, I mean, there's something, there's something that happens in your that's going on in your brain when you're describing the ability to go from, there's this position of kind of, "I hate change," and the unwillingness to kind of it's this, "I
Yeah,
hate"
yeah,
to
yeah,
be able to broaden and see context and, "Oh, right. I mean, if I want tomatoes, I have to be okay with change, and this
yeah.
is why." The
Yeah.
ability to or to
The
s
willingness. Yes.
the willingness to see the larger the larger landscape, and also, I mean, I think what we've been talking about is this movement of, like, the willingness to see the larger landscape and then come back to yourself and to the and ground.
Right.
See the
Right.
large landscape and come back,
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
which is, again, like breathing, which is something we have
Yep.
to time or we die.
Right. Right.
know? So it's this, I get, yeah, that's,
And right there, breathing is such a great example. We do have to die. My doctor of Oriental medicine said to me once,
yeah.
because I have lung issues, I said, I get anxious when my lungs aren't working right. I can tell. And he said, well, you can go 30 days without food. You can go 5 to 10 days without water. You can go 5 minutes without oxygen.
Mhm, mhm,
So, breathing is our innate connection to the world outside our bodies. It is that it is that breathe out, breathe in. We're bringing the world into our bodies. It's also one of our most intimate connections with the world of plants because we and plants have a reciprocal relationship. We breathe in the oxygen that they breathe out.
mhm, mhm,
They breathe in the carbon dioxide that we breathe out in our industrial processes, which are breathing out too much, but that's another, we won't go there today. So there's this beautiful reciprocal relationship between we and photosynthesizing plants and photosynthesizing algae in the ocean, and diatoms in the ocean.
mhm,
Every breath you take, you're not aware of it consciously, but every breath you take, you're connecting yourself to the larger world and you're breathing in reciprocation with these photosynthesizing beings. And I regard that as just one of the most magical parts of being human is that connection is so it's so deep in us
mhm,
that we may not be aware of it, but
mhm,
it connects us every moment.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, the world is breathing and we're in it, we're a part of that breathing. So I, yeah, I love that. That's such a, as you said, such a deep and good example of the interconnectedness and the non-separateness and all the things,
Yeah.
that we are. Yeah.
And maybe that's a good place to close, unless there's anything anybody wants to ask us. I just want to say, Lindy, I'm sorry that you lost the video for so long. There will be a replay up on both my website, and I think Emily's probably going to put it up
Yep.
on her Substack as well. So you may want to watch the replay. And I'm sorry about the technical issues. I'm not sure which end it was at, but here we are. Um, Closing thoughts, Emily?
Um, well, I mean, one of your questions was, is there a practice or attending
Yes.
kind
Thank
of
you for
fun
reminding me.
that I could share? And this is not going to be a big surprise to anybody who's listened to the last 30 minutes of this conversation, uh, or really anybody who knows me at all, is my one practice, which is being with, which is
Yeah.
noticing. And that starts with being with you. We tend to want to be with um, everything else, but
Yeah.
this part. And I would say also, given the conversation that I just had with Susan, and what she shared, being with yourself means that you are being with um, the rest of the natural world in a really deep way, because we are, breathing what the plants breathe out, and the plants are breathing what we breathe out. And so my suggestion would be to just always return to yourself as you're able, and welcome who you are, as a way to welcome yourself, to welcome the next world, and then to begin to look out from there, um, from that space of grounding. But
That's a wonderful practice, and I would say just being with ourselves is Lindy points out that breathing is a pranayama practice in yoga, which it absolutely is and very useful.
yep.
Just sitting and being with ourselves, we can feel our connections to the rest of the world. And what we call ourselves includes, somewhere, I'm not going to remember how many million species of microbes, but in order for our bodies to be what we think of as ourselves, we we there are at least twice as many microbial cells helping this system, this ecosystem that is us, do its work, from digesting our food to keeping our skin clean to actually regulating our moods. There
Mhm.
are at least twice as many microbial cells in our bodies as there are what we call human cells. So just sitting and being with ourselves is a great practice of reconnecting with
Yeah.
all that's also outside our skin boundary.
Yeah.
Um, so
We are,
um,
and we are a collection.
We are indeed, I would say we're ecosystems.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yeah.
people find that super uncomfortable, but something we could get used to. It's part of our evolution as humans.
Mm,
I want to say, before I let Emily go, I want to say thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation, and we could keep it up for a long time, but we did promise about half an hour. Um, so thank you, Emily. And I will post the replay. Lindy pointed out that she got a message saying that Substack was having problems, and that may be where the connection dropping went. But I will
yeah.
post the replay on my Thursday, my regular Thursday newsletter. And Emily's going to post it too. Do you know about when you're going to post it, or does it matter?
I will probably post it Friday. I don't have a
Perfect.
regular newsletter coming out until the following Friday, but I'll get this one out this Friday.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So anybody can watch it that way and rewatch it that way.
Hmm.
And April 13th is the next Earthbound Live, and that will be with Jean Malmgren I'm sorry, brain dead today, of RX Nature. So I think it's April 13th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. But I will certainly, you all will get a notice about that. But Emily, thank you so much. What a delight to
Yeah.
get to talk with you.
Thank
Um,
you. I enjoyed it as always.
and thanks to all who joined. Great to have you along with us.
Thank you.
And all right, thanks, Emily. Emily, hang around a moment. Don't just drop off right now.
Okay.
I'm
I'll
gonna
stay here.
quit. I'm gonna end the live, but stay here.
I'm staying.